one of the more outspoken and thoughtful commentators on these issues. Phil Kerpen, president of American Commitment, AmericanCommitment.org, is on the line with us. Phil, welcome back to the program.
Oh, thank you, Tom, and kind of you to call me one of your more thoughtful ideological opponents. I appreciate that.
You're welcome. I literally have some people who scream at me on the show. I appreciate your rationality. Let's talk about the minimum wage here. In the last half of the last hour, I got a call from a conservative who identified himself as such and said that his understanding was that supply side economics helped tremendously because of some magical thing. I'm not sure I get it. Having read Adam Smith and a lot of economists, Deswit de Tracy, a lot of the 17th, 18th century economists right up to today, I don't understand why you think that raising the minimum wage, putting more money in the pockets of working people who will spend 100% of that money, wouldn't stimulate the economy more than giving another tax break to Mitt Romney so he can put more money in a Swiss bank account, which is going to do nothing for our economy.
Well, the problem is that when you raise the minimum wage, you price people at the low end out of the labor market, and that's why we've got teenage unemployment right now at 24.6%. And there was a compelling study by Casey Mulligan, an economist from the University of Chicago, that found that the 36% increase in the minimum wage after adjusting for inflation that happened since 2006 cost us about 800,000 jobs. And that's not something I believe we can afford to do, especially in such a weak economy where, if people
you want to have dueling studies.
Not working at all.
As you know, Travis Waldron published this piece. You've got a copy of it, looking at the impact of minimum wage, increasing the minimum wage on employment levels. And there isn't any. And in fact, I don't have it right in front of me. I printed it out back about a year ago for one of these debates. And just, minimum wage, unemployment levels, and growth of GDP from, starting back in the 40s, I guess, the late 30s, early 40s when the minimum wage was first introduced, right up to today. And you can't find any trends in there. This is the reason why nobody can say definitively, here's the data, because the minimum wage doesn't have an effect on unemployment. And what's pricing is the wrong word, what's keeping teenagers out of the labor market is that they don't have the skill set. We have an economy right now that sucks so badly because there's no demand, and therefore people aren't being hired. And so the employers, if given the choice of hiring a 17-year-old who has no experience or hiring a 20 or 30-year-old who's been doing a job for a number of years, we'll take the 20 or 30-year-old or 40 or 50-year-old.
Well, I would disagree with that as an empirical question. I think there's a pretty strong consensus among economists across the ideological spectrum, including folks like Larry Summers on the left.
Larry Summers is a right-wing crazy.
Well, okay, I forgot that you considered him to be of the right, but there's a pretty strong consensus in the economics profession that for every 10% increase in the minimum wage, you get about a 1% increase in
there
the
is no such consensus, Phil.
Out of the market. I mean,
you're pulling this out of your left ear. There is no such consensus.
I think you look at Larry Summers' work. I think you look at, again, people like Casey Mulligan, more recent work. There's a pretty strong empirical relationship there. And think about it. Give me
a year set.
If you say it's now illegal for a willing buyer to meet a willing seller, for someone to hire someone who wants to work at a given wage, a lot of those transactions will no longer make economic sense. They're no longer possible.
You're absolutely right. You're absolutely right. Which brings us back to the big question that I was asking in the last hour, which is, what is the purpose of an economy? Why do you think that we have an economy?
To efficiently allocate resources and allow people to express their own subjective preferences and maximize their individual utility, to have people make their own decisions and have the happiest lives they can have.
Okay, here's what Sir James Goldsmith, at the time the richest man on earth, said in 1994 to Charlie Rose when asked that question.
The economy is there to serve the fundamental needs of society.
Yes.
Which are prosperity.
Yes.
Which are stability.
Yes.
And which are contentment.
Prosperity, stability, and contentment. The economy is here to serve society. What you're suggesting is that society is here to serve the economy.
No, I'm not saying that at all.
Okay, if the economy is here to serve society, then, and the rules for the economy are established by we the people through government. We create the laws. We define, what a company can do and can't do. What their tax rates are, what their, pretty much everything. We are the rule keepers for the football field, right? and then and the referees. So why shouldn't we create a rule that says if you can't pay somebody a reasonable wage so that they can actually live and be happy and fulfilled, as you were talking about, if you can't pay somebody that wage, then you've got a lousy business model and a stupid idea, and there's no place for it in our economy. Thank you very much. Go someplace else.
Because I don't trust politicians and bureaucrats to determine what that wage ought to be, and we've got no way to determine where wage levels should be, other than to have willing buyers and willing sellers make those agreements themselves, and to determine that in a market way
that logic, Phil,
efficiently.
That was the logic that stood during Victorian England. I mean, that was the logic that kind of logic is what produces a large class of the working poor and a small class of rich people who get to decide that they're going to make contracts with you. How can one individually possibly make a contract with a multi-billion-dollar corporation and have any rational person think that that's two willing parties?
Well, because if you don't want to enter into that agreement, go work somewhere else or start your own business or what have you. The problem we have right
good
now
luck
is
with
that we
that.
have a terrible economy where it's very difficult to do that for a number of reasons, some of which we agree on and many of which I'm sure we disagree on. But, Tom, if you could make people wealthier by raising the minimum wage by government dictate, why don't we make it $300 an hour and make everyone rich? The point is, if you have the wage too high,
it's a straw man argument,
Phil. Who can't work because their labor is not worth that
My
much.
suggestion, I'm talking about,
is very challenging. I'd be interested if you still support. In the past, we've come to agreement on this idea that there ought to be an expanded teenage training wage. The one that exists right now is very difficult for businesses.
Yeah, I don't disagree with that. We can stipulate that. But let's go back to this core concept. Please don't filibuster me, Phil.
Teenage unemployment, that would be a wonderful thing, especially as we're going into summer now.
Phil, I was not suggesting you started this whole long filibuster out with, Tom, if you want the minimum wage to make people rich. I never suggested that. What I'm suggesting is that increasing the minimum wage will increase demand in the economy. That money will go directly, as soon as you pay minimum wage employees, they spend the money. That money goes directly into the economy, stimulates demand, which makes more demand for goods and services, which makes more business people able to deliver more goods and services, which means ultimately they're going to have to hire more people. In other words, it stimulates the economy. And and Republicans know that as well as Democrats. And that's why Republicans have been blocking any attempt to raise the minimum wage, because it would stimulate the economy and put people back to work.
Well, we had one of the biggest increases in the minimum wage in history that took effect between 2006 and 2009, and I don't think
not in real dollars. For the minimum wage right now to be where it was in 1967, it would have to be $10.
Since 2006, it's 36% higher, adjusted for inflation.
Since 2006, okay.
That you've suggested. Instead, we've got teenage unemployment at 25%. And
we have. This has, as I said, this has nothing to do with the minimum wage. You're mixing apples and oranges. You're saying that the Bush crash, which was the result of our deregulating the banksters, is somehow is not to account for unemployment. My point is that when the minimum wage, if the minimum wage went up that much in 2006, then things must have been pretty good in 2007, and I recall they were.
Well, it was phased in over 3 years, in 3 steps, from $5.15 up to $7.25, which is where it is right now. The principal economic effect of that has been to put a lot of teenagers out of the possibility of having those summer jobs. And it's very high.
The minimum wage is still not where it was in the 1960s, Phil.
Tom, you're not going to, even if you boost aggregate demand in terms of stimulating people buying, it's just going to go into corporate profits. Companies are not going to actually invest in new workers and expand until they have some stability in the regulatory and tax environment, which they don't have right now.
This is the Thom Hartmann Program.
Phil Kerpen. And the website now is AmericanCommitment.org. Thanks, Phil.